And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com. Dan Strafford, Chris Randone with you on this Wednesday morning, getting you ready for a 7-game NBA slate. Lots of games to talk about with high upside and high totals as they start to roll in. We are recording late on Tuesday night. Well, early for you, Chris, right? You're in that West Coast life.
Yeah, man, 6:30. Still got, dinner to have. So
there you
got a whole night ahead of me, man.
What's on the menu? Do you know, or do you guys sort of wing it?
No, tonight we're meal prepping, so just a lot of healthy greens. And we don't do meat anymore, so we're doing just a lot of plant-based protein.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Some nuts mixed in there, I assume, and
A little bit of nuts, legumes, tempeh,
legumes.
the tempeh,
Any haricot vert? That's beans for you crazy people out there. Anyway, working in a restaurant, I worked in restaurants for like 10 years, and you would always get people who were like, the haricot verts, what are those? They're green beans, people. It's just French. Come on, stop asking. Anyway, let's dive in here. And don't forget, as always, Awesemo.com has a ton of content available for you both in front of and behind the paywall. If you want to become a member, Early Bird is your promo code, 50% off your first month. And you will see over there on YouTube, if you are a lurker or a watcher there who has not yet signed up, there are constant giveaways there as well, where we'll open up some of the content depending on likes or replies or whatever it might be. So you'll want to tune in. To do that, you want to subscribe on YouTube, hit that alarm bell, make sure you're present for our shows. And if you're listening on any of the podcasting apps, be sure to comment, over there, and come on over to the YouTube shows that are live each and every night, which is the Deeper Dive with Adam and Dave, and then Live Before Lock, which is a rotating cast of characters between Spags and Josh and yourself, Ed Fear, also known as Fast Eddie Fear. Tons of great content there as well. So we're going to dive in. We're going to do what we always do. We're going to go point guard on through to center. We'll use DK as our jumping off point. We'll look at Fanduel and Yahoo throughout. Yahoo is bringing you part of this podcast. They're a sponsor herein, so check out their DFS offerings. They have the Baller Tournament available to you in both the NBA and in the NFL. On Sunday, you get a $200K baller, $10 entry, a $65K baller, $25 entry for the NBA. On Wednesday night, $10 and $30K to the prize pool, $5K to first. Chris, for you, as we've gotten into the NBA season, I know you've been doing the pods, you've been doing the live shows. Do you feel like your game is coming into focus, where you're focusing with projections, how your lineup building, construction, all those things as we hit mid-November here?
Yeah, things are starting to make a lot more sense. Rotations are starting to really come out, and we're understanding kind of who is getting a lot of usage, who's on the floor, who's staying on the floor late in games. And I mean, these are all keys because obviously you want to get as many minutes and as much usage as you can out of your players in your lineup. So I'm starting to really get a better grasp of how coaches are kind of rolling out, how defenses are playing. And it's definitely a grind, man. But I'm excited for what's to come for this NBA season.
All right. Some injuries to keep in mind here. You do have Anthony Davis has been dealing with his shoulder. He is playing as we record this Tuesday night. Obviously, back-to-backs can always be a question mark for some of these stars. Paul George is questionable. This is a possibility that he'll play at some point on this trip. Adrian Wojnarowski over at ESPN announcing that as from his sources. Kyle Lowry is out, of course. You do have Hassan Whiteside with a Q tag. He will play Tuesday. A foot sprain was causing some lingering pain, so we'll keep an eye on that into Wednesday night. You have Al Horford with a Q tag. He rested Tuesday, should be ready to go for Wednesday's game. So just some of the names that you want to keep in mind. The likes of Serge Ibaka, I believe, is still out for Toronto. Yeah, he was sent back to Toronto on Sunday to receive further treatment, so he will not be with the team in Portland. So again, that gets us some sweet Chris Boucher action, but we'll talk about that a little later on. Chris, we look at point guard, and when it comes to talking cash games versus tournaments, it does feel like Westbrook is, again, a very solid cash game option. James Harden at 11-7 has the upside to go nuts, but 11-7 still a bit of a high price point to really project him at something that would return your investment there. But wondering on the top end of point guard, who stands out to you? Which names are you focusing in on this early on?
I mean, clearly James Harden, obviously at 11-7. I mean, it's just really hard to pass someone up who you know is going to shoot 25 plus times, going to shoot a ton of threes. He's going to play a ton of minutes. And so, I mean, it's these types of things that, you have to put into consideration for cash. So I would say James Harden is definitely a cash play. But then you look at Westbrook and he's 8,900, but he's not getting you that 5 times, 6 times value right now. And that's why we've seen a significant drop in his price. And it's really frustrating because he's so talented. And I don't know if it's because of being on a team with someone else who has, the highest usage rate in the NBA. So, and he's a guy who's a high usage guy himself. So it's difficult. And I rostered him this previous game against New Orleans. I thought it was a game where he could definitely bounce back. Wasn't upset with how he shot from the field. He played 35 minutes, but still, I mean, 43 points at 8,800. It's somewhat okay. I mean, it's about 4.7 times his salary. But I think at point guard we can probably go somewhere else. And I think where I probably would be looking at is I think D'Angelo Russell's in a great spot at 8,100. He's, I mean, just the main vocal point right now. He's priced a little bit low considering what is taking place with the team. He is the team. I mean, Draymond's back, but he's really the only legitimate threat as a scorer on that team. So I think I would probably roster D'Angelo Russell over Westbrook and save that extra 800. And then I think Van Fleet, if Lowry's still out as well, which I think he will be.
Yep.
I think at 7,100, he's playing a heavy load of minutes and he's on the floor. And at 7,100, he gives you a lot of upside in multiple ways. Defensively, assist, points, can shoot the three ball. So I like that as well. And I guess we can throw in Lou Williams too at 7,200. I don't mind him either.
I will re-echo, not really a word, but echo what you said about D'Angelo Russell here. Guy has usage of, I think, 32.7 at present, and that's just going to continue to hover around there, if not go up. 32 flat, I should say, on the year. He's going to be the one who takes all the shots for this squad and is going to be the focal point. So with you on Russell, I'll have to say probably not as confident in Van Vliet, though it is a good matchup. Just bulk of his minutes coming with the ones does scare me a little bit, and the price tag up. And I do want to point out DeJounte Murray here at 5,900, coming off a bad game, 4 turnovers, the same amount of turnovers as assists, but has a matchup here with Minnesota, which is a +1 and just 5,900. So you do have some opportunity here in the mid-tier and even at the lower end to find some value that you can roll out there. Point guard does typically give us a pretty deep bench of opportunity. We'll talk about some FanDuel and Yahoo after shooting guard and after power forward, respectively. Now, at shooting guard, you have Harden again, 11-7. Might consider him personally a little bit more here. Do think there's obvious upside, but don't know about necessarily fitting him in as Chris, you see yourself doing in cash games. You have Russell eligible here as well at shooting guard. Wiggins has had a very solid season. We also know this is a guy that the peripheral stats don't come necessarily naturally to, though his assists are up on the year, which is great to see. Rebounds still in the middle of the single digits. Blocks and steals aren't regular happening for him, but he's been very good with the ball in his hands. Lou Williams, DeRozan is down at 7K against Minnesota. Anything stand out here to you? There's not one play that necessarily calls to me at shooting guard, but wondering if you see it differently.
I mean, Wiggins with Teague out, his usage has increased. He's the primary ball handler. He's getting assists. He's crashing the boards. But, I mean, he's shooting at least 20 times from the field almost every single game. So there's a lot of upside there with points. And if he's able to get those other types of points through rebounds and assists, that's where we kind of need him to come through because usually he's just that one-way guy in the past where he's just a scorer and nothing more. But him as a ball handler, that's kind of changed. And so if Teague's out, I definitely don't mind Wiggins here. I think Jaylen Brown is a clear play because at 7,300, I think he should be priced in the 8,000 somewhere. With Gordon Hayward out, his usage is up. They need to rely on his scoring more shot attempts. And what I liked about last game was he was very active, crashing the boards. He had 11 rebounds. So I think for him, I don't mind that either. And then as we go down, I think Marcus Smart is somewhat interesting. Beverly, I don't ever mind playing. He is cheap. He's 5,500. I'm not expecting a lot out of him when it comes to scoring. but he does get there when it comes to defense, and he gets a lot of rebounds. So at 5,500, we need him to get 25, 30 points. I think that's definitely doable. Alec Burks, I think, is somewhat interesting at 5,500. Coming off the bench, he's the sixth man right now when it comes to scoring. So I like this because he's also closing out games, and he's playing a majority of the second half. So I think Alec Burks in a game where LA could be probably a little bit up tempo. It's more of a down pace game for LA, but Golden State is one of the highest paced teams in the league, so I don't mind that. And as we go down, I think we'll know more value as the day goes on tomorrow. But yeah, that's pretty much it for shooting guard.
Golden State at 102.98 from what I'm seeing from a pace department on the year. Usually your worst teams, the teams that are not as good, play at a higher pace. You're trying to get more shots and get more going on offense. Does look like in that Boston game, talking about Jaylen Brown, the 228 over under at present. Some of these lines still off as some of these games are still being played on Tuesday night, but shooting guard does provide some upside. Lou Williams stands out to me at 7,200, and again, a guy that has all the upside in the world. If the shot's dropping, he doesn't give you a ton in the way of the peripherals. He'll give you a handful of rebounds, a handful of assists, maybe a steal or two. But if those threes are dropping for someone like Lou Will, 7,200 stands out as a higher price point, but one that I do think he can pay off at shooting guard. To your point, not sure of anyone really in the value department that stands out to me. Want to take a quick look at Fanduel, get some of the higher price points guys here and see who you think stands out the most, Chris. You have Harden, Davis, LeBron, Karl Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid, Kawhi, Damian Lillard, all above 10K. Now, on FanDuel, a little bit different, obviously, with having no MPE and also having to get two position players at point guard, shooting guard, small forward, and power forward. Center, you get one. So that comes into play a little bit here. But again, Harden, Davis, James, Towns, Embiid, Leonard, or Lillard. Is there one of those stars that stands out to you as somebody that you'd be looking to build your lineup around over on FanDuel.com?
Man, for FanDuel, Harden's 12.2, and the next guy that comes in is 9,200 at D'Angelo Russell. So I would have to consider that based on roster construction, because 12.2 it's getting a little pricey. Lillard's 10.2, Westbrook's 9.9, James is 11.8. Kawhi finally over the 10K mark. So now you have to really reconsider if Kawhi is someone you can go ahead and roster. Huge disappointment last game. He almost had a triple-double, but just scoring-wise, it just didn't seem like he was really wanting to score. And that sounds weird, but it just seemed like the mentality was a little bit different, a lot more passive. So I like the more aggressive Kawhi. And at 10.3, if he's not aggressive, I don't think that's a route that I want to go. But when I look at all these guys, I think where I would want to go is I wouldn't mind going Westbrook on FanDuel at 9.9. And I think D'Angelo Russell I would pivot to from Harden, because I think I would want to pay up in other areas. I think I'm going to have to consider Towns or Embiid tomorrow. And then you have Anthony Davis as the clear-cut superstar at the forward position. And then it goes down to Jason Tatum. And so I guess that's the decision you're going to make. Are you going to roster Anthony Davis? If not, then you're probably going to be going and playing a well-balanced lineup rather than having a stars and scrubs type of approach.
It is always fun to monitor ownership with Anthony Davis. There is the obvious, and we'll get to power forward momentarily, but the obvious elephant in the room when it comes to his injuries. But over the course of his career, he's played in the majority of the games, right? But there's a narrative out there that he is oft injured. And yes, he seems to get some nicks and bruises and cuts more so than other players, but it's a narrative that drives down his ownership, right? At that price point, people feel like they can't take the risk of him getting injured, but it's just not something that happens all that often. So intrigued to see what Awesemo.com has ownership projections for AD at on Wednesday night. And obviously, that all being said, him coming through tonight's games as we record unscathed and able to play with that shoulder injury that has been lingering for him. But continuing on, and I do want to point out, you made the point about Andrew Wiggins with Teague out, pulling up on NBA Wowie, which is over on addmorefunds.com now, with Teague off the floor here in 2019. Again, small sample size, but from beginning of the season to now, with Teague off the floor, Wiggins on. Wiggins at a 30.2 usage. Now, Karl Anthony Towns just behind him at 20. 28 as it were, but pulling up what Teague and Wiggins are when both were on the court this season, waiting for my query results to load, which is always good for podcasts, right? When people are waiting for a computer to catch up. But we'll wait. We'll pull that up when it comes, but we can move on to small forward, but I'll hit that just to make the comparison between the two. Small forward, you do have LeBron, Kawhi. Yeah, Paul George questionable here. And Blake Griffin came back from injury, a little bit different. Blake had already practiced a lot. Paul George has been in and out, has had the hamstring issue since signing in the summer, and had other, a shoulder? He had a shoulder issue. He had the shoulder surgery, no hamstring. But do you play a Paul George lineup if he's active at 8,200? Do you worry about minutes, or do you just sort of jump right back in with a new team, new lineup, and a new look against the Houston Rockets team that plays up in pace?
I mean, I think we talked about this before. Usually when someone comes back from an injury and they got to really get, I guess, lean into the offense, what are we going to see? Maybe 18 to 22 minutes. I mean, it's not like he's going to go out there and be a full go and play 30, 32 minutes. It's just not realistic. It doesn't really ever happen. And so if you want to pay that, I mean, and you think that he's going to be able to pay off in 18 minutes, I mean, that's great. But I think it's a wait and see approach over the next couple games and getting him into the offense and getting him comfortable into the mix. This is going to be a process with George over the next probably couple weeks. So I won't go there yet. And I think I'm going to hold off until we kind of see some consistency.
All right. Where else do you find yourself at the top end of small forward? Do you feel like Wiggins more eligible here or better at shooting guard? And let's see if my query finally finished here, because it should have by now. Let's see. Wiggins at 28.8 and Teague was at 20.2. So not a huge jump, but enough of a jump for Wiggins to go up to 30. And this is just on the year. Small sample. Did not look up 2018 numbers. Maybe I'll do that while Chris is talking about the rest of small forward. What do you like? Who are you looking at here at the 3?
Man, I think Ben Simmons is very interesting at 6,800. It's not the best of matchups. It's a very slow-paced Orlando team. But at 6,800, you mean to tell me that Ben Simmons can't get there? I don't think he'll have trouble with Fultz nor DJ Augustine in this matchup. And we don't need much from him when it comes to 6,800. I mean, this is a potential triple-double guy. So I love him at 6,800. And I'm very curious to see where ownership goes tomorrow with him. I think Tatum and Brown are definitely full go. I mean, with Hayward out of the offense, both of these two guys go and get an uptick in almost everything. And then as you go down a little bit, you'll probably want to consider maybe Tobias Harris at 6,700. Nice little revenge narrative going back to Orlando. It's always fun when you always just want to attack a guy that always goes back to a place where he kind of started his NBA career. But I think Covington, you can really look at him. He's very inconsistent. However, though, he's a very active player, crashes boards. And, you know, the biggest thing about Covington is he gets there defensively. So gets steals, gets blocks at 5,000. We don't really need him to do much. He'll be in a game against San Antonio, which San Antonio's defense has not been good this year. And so Minnesota, I believe right now they're a top 4, top 5 pace team.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I love that. And San Antonio's up there. I think top 15, top 13, top pace team as well. So I don't mind Covington at that position. And then Rudy Gay, I think, is always in play because he's so cheaply priced. And he's not going to give you all the minutes in the world, but he can be productive in the 18, 20 minutes that he does get on the floor.
I will say, love the Simmons call. And I think that's spot on. That price point for somebody who has all the upside in the world. On Tuesday night, as the 76ers beat the Cleveland Cavaliers 98-97, the line for Simmons was 35 minutes, 15 points, 2 steals, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks. That's going to get it done. Like that's a stat line that at 6,800, you know, maybe you pick up a couple more rebounds, you pick up an assist or 2 more, and you're flirting with a triple-double pretty easily there for that matchup. I wonder who I would have to look up previous games if an Isaac or a Gordon would be out on Simmons more so than a Fultz or an Augustine, depending on who's on the floor with Ben Simmons. But that is an intriguing matchup, and I think one that, to your point, the pace is down, but one that I think has all the upside in the world. So I dig that a lot. Plenty of other names at small forward I think that will come forward as we discuss this slate on Wednesday morning, which has the NBA strategy show. And then, of course, you have the deeper dive and live before lock available on YouTube. You have the projections, ownership projections behind the paywall, along with the deep dive written by Lofty or Adam, depending on the day of the week. Power forward is up next, where we do have Anthony Davis, who I mentioned before, with that shoulder injury. He is 9,400. We know the gigantic upside he has. We've often in the past not played bigs against Golden State, but this seems like a fine spot for him. If he's healthy, are you rolling AD back out there on DraftKings?
Ooh, I mean, on a back-to-back, I think we're going to have to see tonight how much involvement he has as far as how many minutes he plays and how active he is tonight. Currently in the second quarter, I mean, he's already at 15 minutes. And, I mean, yeah, we don't know kind of how they'll do it on a back-to-back, but, so he's playing tonight against Phoenix. So I think that's something to consider and look at and say, okay, well, if they wanted to give him a rest, maybe they would have rested him tonight. And so we got to be careful because tomorrow we could see them rest him. It's Golden State. It's not the same Golden State in the past. So I wouldn't be surprised if they win tonight. He plays 35, 36 minutes tonight, and then they rest him. But I think even if he's active, I don't think I'm going to go there. I think there's other areas we could attack, and it's too much of a risk with AD. It's just not worth it given the fact that he's fragile, and then also because of all these different variables that play into effect.
I dig it. I get the analysis. I'll be on AD if all signs point to him playing. Like, obviously, if there's any question of him sitting this one, you have to be cognizant of, especially on DK with light swap, how you're getting him into your lineup, using the guard, forward, and utility spots correctly, not hamstringing yourself if he happens to be out, and having him in the power forward or center position, having more options. But I think this is a matchup I want to have some AD in, but we'll see who comes out ahead between the two of us there. What about the rest of the power forward? We've talked about a number of these names already. You do still have Lamarcus Aldridge at just 6,600. This is a guy who pretty much goes out and puts up near double-doubles on a pretty regular basis. His rebounds have been down a big, actually, I should take that back. Hasn't been doing it this year, has in the past. Rebounds have been down. Assists have been pretty consistent. His points per game are pretty consistent with what we've seen on the year. Do you buy into Aldridge being a 6,600 player, or do you see a little bit more upside in that price point?
Aldridge, man. Yeah, I mean, you said it best. In the past, he's been that double-double guy. Not really a big guy on the boards lately. Pretty strange. And just a guy where, he was 1 of 4 2 games ago against Boston. Yeah, he had 4 fouls, and I mean, but he played 26 minutes, just really was nowhere found in the offense. He's someone who can definitely get you there. At 6,600, we need him to get us 40 points. So can he do it? Yes. However, though, things have changed for him. He's also a little bit older. Towns might be an issue for him in this game, and I think that might be scary because clearly this year, with him, he's got some silly fouls, and he should know better. He's a veteran, but I think if you're looking at Aldridge, I think I would want to go elsewhere. I think I'd maybe want to go down a little bit. I think Draymond Green at 5,600 is just he's 5,600. When was the last time we've seen him that low? I don't mind it. If he can get us 28, 30 minutes, I think he can more than pay off. But then there's guys like PJ Washington, who's someone who's a very active rookie, plays a lot of minutes, can score, very good at driving to the basket. And so I think, those guys, Covington's also in that position, Rudy Gay. I mean, these guys we spoke on earlier. I mean, even Jaren Jackson Jr., he's come into his own over the last few games, and he's 4,800. Last 3 games, 44 points, 32 points, 20 points, and I'm speaking fantasy points, but all over 30 minutes, very active. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd rather choose those guys rather than a guy that really hasn't been doing it much and a guy where I just don't have much confidence in.
Jaren Jackson Jr. has been popping up a lot in the boom bust columns over there on Osmo.com. Alex and team have put together the probability of someone going for a GPP boom or busting against their price point. And he's been over there a decent amount. We'll point out, to your point, price tag of 4,800, but also Chris Boucher is eligible here at power forward. He's still 4,300. OG Anunoby is out for Toronto. Serge Ibaka is out for Toronto. So the likes of Siakam and Boucher are probably going to get even more minutes. Now, obviously, Siakam's getting them no matter what, but This is a situation where Toronto's rotations and exactly how they're getting these players into the game matter, and minutes should be available here against a Portland team. Even somebody like Rodney Hollis Jefferson, who had a very solid run against the Clippers after that Anunoby injury, 28.25 DraftKings points. He's 4,500. So there's some potential value here in this Toronto front court that could help you out a lot as this game happens. So something to keep in mind. Let's talk a tiny bit about Yahoo here, Chris. They are our presenting sponsor. They have multiple tournaments available for the NBA on Wednesday night. Also, as I said, the two big baller tournaments for the NFL, $10 with $200,000 in prize pool, $25 with $65,000 in prize pools, $20K to first in that $10 entry. So you'll want to get in over there and make sure to check out the NFL. But looking at the NBA, they have a $10 that has $30,000 in prizes, $5,000 to first place. You get top end Harden, Davis, Cat, LeBron, Kawhi, Russell Westbrook, Embiid. Some of the names that we've seen many times over. We scroll through. Angelo Russell at $37 stands out a bit. Ben Simmons, not nearly as cheap as he is over on DraftKings. He's 36 here, relatively speaking to the rest of the field, is priced what seems to be right. Wiggins down at $31. Anybody stand out to you as somebody that you'd want to sort of put a pin in if you're playing over on Yahoo, or suggest a little bit more research on?
Man, I got to pull up Yahoo real quick. I didn't know that the lobby already had the games shown for tomorrow.
They do. They're getting better.
They got a quick turnaround.
Yeah, they're getting there. But I think to take the mic for a second here, I would say Andrew Wiggins stands out a lot at $31. He's the same price as DeRozan and Tobias Harris. I think there's tons of upside for him there. And I do think Simmons could still be a good play, but maybe not nearly as much as he is on DraftKings. You have Covington at 21, Jaren Jackson Jr. at 21 as well. So I think this is a whole different, and I talk about this to an extent here, Chris, because those who don't play over on Yahoo, it's a different game. This isn't just porting over your DraftKings or your Fanduel, and I've said that many times over here on the Early Bird. It takes projections and it takes understanding of this. And obviously, we have projections at Osmo, and if you remember, you have the opportunity to use Fantasy Cruncher or the lineup builder and build lineups over there that are different. A lot of people try to just pick the same plays they're doing at FanDuel or DraftKings and win over there. It's not going to happen. So if you want to focus and take your time, that's what you should do over on Yahoo. Chris Boucher is $13, which is near the minimum on Yahoo. Anybody, as you scroll through or as you take a quick look, stand out for you?
Yeah, I love Norman Powell at $14 with OG out. I think Norman Powell also gets a lot more run. So I don't mind that as well. If Hood is out, I think we can go ahead and talk about maybe rostering Ken Bazemore. I think Bazemore is he $10? He is actually. He's in the shooting guard position. I don't mind that as well. If you look at Ken Bazemore, what he's done, for a $10 player, 32 points, 25 points, 16. Okay, so those were little duds. But, I mean, he got 33 minutes last game because of the injury to Hood. So if he starts and Hood is out again for $10, you can't go wrong there. So I like those two guys. And then, when I always look at the point guard position to see what kind of value I can get, I think Derek White is interesting at $13. And I think Anthony Simmons is someone that we got to really start looking at because he is becoming the sixth man basically of that offense. Playing great deal amount of minutes. He's only $11. He's averaging 18 fantasy points per game on Yahoo. So I don't mind that either. And then at the power forward position, I think Hollis Jefferson, we saw him kind of come into his own last night with the injury to OG early on. So I think he's someone to look out for. Rudy Gay 16, and then Hachimura 17. So I think these are all guys you can really consider if you're looking to plug in some stars.
I dig it, and I think Simons over there with Portland is a great call. He's been their third guard behind McCollum and Dame, but now with this Hood injury, that just solidifies him further. Bazemore is available as well, but I like the Simons call a lot.
Center, is it Simons?
I think it is. It's Simons. So
really, what's crazy? I thought it was Penny Hardaway's son.
What? Just because his name's Anthony?
I for some reason, I swear to you, I for the last couple of weeks, I'm like, oh, it's Penny Hardaway's son, just because of Anthony. And I'm like, and now that you just said Simons, and the whole time, I guess I was just overlooking his name, and it was Simmons. I thought it was Simmons this entire time. But even then, it's not like freaking Penny Hardaway's last name is Simons. So I don't know what I was thinking. I was so focused on Anthony that that's just unreal.
One of my
It's embarrassing.
favorite. Well, I mean, let's be honest. I've been doing this long enough and mispronounced enough names that nothing is embarrassing when you're doing a show with me. But what's even better is I enjoy in baseball more so completely getting the skin tone of the player wrong. Like just thinking somebody, I was like, oh yeah, of course, he's a lefty, 6'4" white guy, and then he's a 5'8" Hispanic player. I'm like, wait, how did I get that so wrong? And I realized, Dan, you need to get out more. You need to open up your eyes a little bit more and see the world. But yeah, it's Anthony Simons.
Man, you learn something new every day, man.
That's why we're here, Chris. We're making it happen. Let's close out with center, and then we can no longer be embarrassed equally on this podcast. But you'll be fine. It's a safe space. It's a safe space. Currently, there's no one listening. I mean, come on, that's fine. Just the 4,000 or so people who download and watch us over on YouTube. It's fine. Karl Anthony Towns, Embiid, Siakam, who we talked at power forward. Let's talk centers only. So it's Vucevic, Capella, Whiteside has the Q tag, Valanciunas against Charlotte, Gasol, Zeller. Then obviously we have MPE on DK that helps us out a lot. But Towns and Embiid, clear talents, but not necessarily the best matchups when it comes to pace or opponent. Vucevic has a matchup on the other side against Embiid, who's clearly a very good defender. Then you have Capella in this Clippers matchup. There's not necessarily any standout option at center on DK. Who stands out to you?
Love Capella and Harrell, man. It's going to be a great game tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to that game. Two athletic centers just going to go at it. Probably both teams will need these guys on the floor a lot. Love that. I think Siakam is in a great spot. Portland's front court is very soft. I could see him exploiting that and taking advantage of that as well. Whiteside, I mean, what he's done, it's really hard to pass up. He's 6,400 tomorrow. And, I mean, look what 35 minutes, 34 minutes, 44 points, 41 points. I mean, at 6,400, if you're thinking he's going to score in the 40s, how do you not go ahead and roster him? So I think those guys really stand out. Obviously, the top guys stand out, Davis, Towns, and Embiid. Davis is 9,400. I didn't realize he was that cheap. So now looking at it over again, it makes me reconsider really how much he can really go off tomorrow at that small of a price point. He should be in the 10Ks. This doesn't make any sense why he's 9,400. He's 10K. He was 10K today, and now he's dropping. That doesn't make any sense to me. But
the thing with Davis, and I think Loft and I have talked about in the past, DraftKings, I think, really works off of ownership percentage. I think that's where their price really derives from, is how owned they are. Now, also with performance and total points and all of those things. But I think if AD continues to be in the single digits because of concerns about injury, because of concerns about matchup, you're going to see him in this mid 9K price point for a couple of weeks. Now, obviously, if he blows up, again, you'll get more ownership and you'll get a higher price point. But I'm not shocked it's in the mid nines. I think it's wrong. I think it's a misprice. But I do think that it makes some sense in what we've seen from the DK algorithm over the years. Who else you were about to go on there at center? Who else do you like?
I mean, other than that, I think if you're looking to pay down or you're looking for someone, Cauley Stein can be somewhat interesting. He's really come into a groove the last few games, and he's cheap, 4,900. Jaren Jackson Jr., we spoke on him earlier. He's 48. Enes Kanter, I mean, I don't know really if you want to roster someone that I'm not sure he's going to give you a lot of minutes, but they have Hollis Jefferson at center. Obviously we talked about Chris Boucher. He's someone who, is going to probably get 20 plus minutes now, especially with OG out, because he was coming in and filling in for OG on substitutions. So I'm sure he'll have some heavy ownership drive his way because of that 4,300 price tag. So other than that, man, it seems like, this is a good first look at the slate for tomorrow.
It feels good to me. It looks like Daniel Tice is doubtful for this game for the Celtics. Robert Williams has been playing fairly well, and the Celtics have been doing a pretty good job of winning ball games, but that may open up some more minutes for Kanter in a matchup where he should have some offensive power to go with this Celtics lineup. Defense isn't great for Menas, but they can get it done on the offensive end. A 1 point per minute DFS option most years for Cantor, so maybe he gets some more of the same here at a cheap price point. For a great show, Chris, you find Chris over on Twitter. Give him a follow if you haven't already, at Chris Randone. Find me at Dan Stratford, of course, at Osmo_com. It's Osmo NBA. Follow all the different handles because there's constant giveaways on all of them when it comes to free content, but also to subscriptions and more. So you can check that out by following each and every one of those. Again, early bird is your promo code for 50% off your first month to get into Osmo.com. But if you're on the outside of the paywall, be sure to like and subscribe over on YouTube. Leave a comment on this video. Leave them on all. Join the chat over there on YouTube as well. We'd love to have you. With that said, wish you the best of luck on Wednesday slate. I'll be back with you Thursday morning. It's myself and Adam. Then you get me again on Friday morning with Lofty. Then you get Emac and Adam on Saturday. Until then, you've been listening to the DFS Early Bird presented by Osmo.com.